It's a great day to have a great day. Hopefully everybody got one in already this morning or plans on getting a really good workout in this afternoon. Let's dive right into Chapter 8 as a part of Part 2. Chapter 8 is titled, In Praise of the Flank Attack. Not to be confused with the flank steak, but in praise of the flank attack. And what a flank attack is, it's attacking somebody where they're vulnerable or where they're weak. And so the chapter starts off by talking about George Washington in terms of his military experience and how he was perceived to be a guy that was brave and made bold decisions, when in reality that wasn't always the case when it came to his military background. And a lot of times he liked to avoid conflict and avoid war altogether. And his big motto was never attack where or when it's obvious. And actually one of his greatest victories came whenever he attacked in the middle of the night. It was against a bunch of drunk Germans at the time, and he was able to win that battle. And to you guys, it might sound a bit Delphic because we don't understand it all the way, but that's what he was a master of. He was a master of withdrawing at the right time and this flank attack that we're referring to. And so then the chapter really gets into talking about battles in general, and there was actually a study conducted of 280 battles, right? 280 battles, and only 6 of these battles actually won from a direct attack. So they're talking about, like, that's a small percentage. 2% of battles that are won are attacked just like head on, when it's expected, when it's obvious. Everything else, we're using deception, we're using our strengths, we're using the weaknesses of who we're attacking as our advantage. And I think that's really important because that goes into the idea of finding leverage, finding the path of least expectation, not the path of least resistance, but the path of least expectation. And that's whenever you're able to rationally see an obstacle for what it is. I think you're then able to make that decision, okay, what is that path? Because a lot of times you think just going at it head on, using brute force might be the answer, but that might not always be the case. So whenever you can see an obstacle rationally first, then I think you're able to see what the best way to attack it is. And then it also goes into the idea of disadvantages. I know we've already talked about people thinking they're at a disadvantage when really they can use these disadvantages as their advantages if they perceive it to be the right way, if they perceive it to be a strength. And it really got me to thinking about a book I read called David and Goliath, which is written by Malcolm Gladwell, an outstanding read for anybody interested in something to read over this break in addition to The Obstacle is the Way. But it really talks about that battle. Everybody's heard the story of David and Goliath, but what it really goes into is the depth behind it and how a guy like David didn't fight Goliath at his battle. He took a flank attack approach where he stood up on a mountain in between the Shephelah, and he was able to take his slingshot and hit Goliath right between the eyes with a rock and then go down there and decapitate him at that point. So it really wasn't about, if he would have tried to fight him fist to fist, yeah, that's a mismatch. Like, that's not why you wouldn't attack him directly. So that's why a guy like David takes this flank attack where now he's up on the hill where you got this big mammoth of a human being down there waiting to battle combatantly, where now you got this archer with a slingshot taking him out from a distance. That's using your strengths to your advantage and attacking opponents where they're weak. And I think that's just so crucial, and it really reminded me of it, which is why I really enjoyed this chapter. And then it even finalizes the chapter by talking about the art of convincing, because they're using it from that approach as well. And a lot of times the best people that can convince people to do things that's in their best interest are the guys or the people that use indirect communication, where they don't start with an opinion that they know is going to be completely contrary to the person they're trying to argue or to convince, where they find a middle ground. And I think that's important when you're talking about getting somebody to agree with some type of idea that you have or that you want to present. Like, don't go the complete opposite. Like, this could apply to professors, the way you talk to our coaching staff. Like, if you start taking the complete opposite approach or opinion of what you know we believe in or anything like that, it's probably not going to be in your best interest. But if you do believe in something wholeheartedly, start with a common ground and see if both sides can begin to see it from that vantage point, from that viewpoint. I think that's crucial. And then back to talking about paths and overcoming obstacles, it ends with a quote saying, sometimes the longest way around something is the shortest way home. And I think that's important, because a lot of times we want to think, okay, from A to B, like, got to go this way because it's right there. But sometimes if you could take the longer way, it might have a few more obstacles, but it might better you in the long run. It might present different opportunities that you weren't aware of with the narrow vision that you might have originally anticipated or went into it with. But it sometimes can lead the shortest way home. And that's why the flank attack, attacking an opponent when they're vulnerable or at their weakness, is so important. That's chapter 8. Get going tomorrow, chapter 9, and then we're almost getting towards the end of part 2, but we got a few more to go. See you then.